What is going on, everybody? It's Destiny Malibu and my co-host,
DJ Desi.
We are live from the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas, and we are so excited to be back on property in Las Vegas at the Virgin Hotels and podcasting live on location. It is so much fun.
It is. It's a blast. We get to see people walking by and we have a good time here.
Yes. If you are new to our podcast, this is a mental health focused podcast where we talk about everything self-development, mental health. We're a community of people who want to grow and have a growth mindset and every single day want to get better.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Exactly.
And so we, on today's topic, are going to be addressing a question from a fan.
Yes.
From a listener, which is really exciting because we go ahead.
Yeah, and so if you have any questions like this listener, you can go to AskDestinyMalibu.com and submit your little voice recording memo, and we can address your questions on one of our future episodes.
Yes. So this question, we're not going to say the name of who it's from. We're going to keep things anonymous, so you guys don't have to worry about us playing your question on the show or your name or anything. We'll keep it anonymous unless you specifically state it's okay. But so basically this person asked they left us a voice memo. So in summary, it basically was, how do I deal with friends if they are being extremely negative or negative toward you? Like, do you keep being their friend, or do you start creating distance between yourself and them? And what do you do in that situation? So this is a very touchy question because
Yes.
I feel like this relates to like the story of every person who struggles with mental health. It's like a lot of people who struggle with mental health, I feel like often feel like they're a burden.
Right.
And that can often like make the condition like way worse.
Right.
So how do you as a friend like be there for someone while simultaneously like not letting what they're going through also bring you down?
Right.
How do you find that balance?
Right. And in previous episodes, we talked about empathy and sympathy, and there's one other one.
Yeah, just empathy and sympathy and compassion and relating to
Compassion, that's
people.
right.
And I'm glad you brought that up because so we have talked about in another episode the importance of empathy. And empathy versus sympathy is actually allowing yourself to feel what the other person is feeling, and sympathy is basically like not allowing yourself to feel the emotion but feeling sorry for someone.
Right.
And in the case of someone who is emotionally drained themselves, you can't put someone else's life vest on before you put yours on, right?
Right.
So if you're running on empty, if your oxygen tank is low and you're trying to help someone else first, what's going to happen to you? You're not going to make it.
Right.
If you're on empty.
Right.
So I think in the situation of somebody who is like emotionally like maxed out,
Yeah.
you don't want, if you're a very naturally empathetic person and you don't want to like drain yourself to the point of zero, like I know I struggle with that too. It's like I am a very empathetic person, and if I allowed myself, like that can get drained easily because there's like no, sometimes I have a hard time putting a limit on where, you know, I can listen to other people's problems as well as my own. And I think sometimes we can think that we're like invincible and we can listen to as many people's problems as possible and still be okay. But I think it's important to like be real with yourself and understand, like this person who asked this question, like if you are feeling drained and you're feeling like I don't emotionally have the space to deal with myself and be there for you during this hard time. It's a dance because you want to be there for your friend, but you also don't want to neglect yourself.
Right.
So it's a dance of like finding the balance of being there for your friend while also staying true to yourself and understanding like what your own limits are.
Right. It's super important to know your limits because you need to know your limits and realize that you can set those boundaries for yourself and for your friend in a kind way.
Yeah.
And something that I like to tell myself, which is helpful in these kinds of stressful situations, is to deal with it in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control.
Yeah,
When
I
you
love
use
that.
those words and when you're trying to work through a problem with someone, doing it out of love and being patient with the other person
Right.
is so important, especially if you care about this person, if they're a best friend or a family member, you know, and if you're not able to handle the issue on your own anymore, or you're maxed out, as you were saying, then having a heart-to-heart, be like, hey, I need to tell you something that is affecting me.
Right.
And I know for me, when I was working, I was having to deal with all these little problems all the time.
Right.
And my boyfriend at the time, at the end of every day, I'd vent to him for 10 to 15 minutes, and
Right.
probably for about like 2 weeks every day. And then he finally, he's like, I'm sorry you had a bad day, but like, I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah. It feels harsh, but
It feels harsh, but he was doing it because it wasn't something that he wanted to deal with, which is
Right.
okay, because I was doing it every day. I was over complaining, and realizing that I was over complaining, I dialed it back.
Right.
It was a lot of self-reflection, but that, as a friend, when you go to someone, they may be a little hurt, they may react, and you have to be ready to accept that,
right.
because your friend is going to be hurt. Like, I was thrown off guard because he's my boyfriend. I'm like,
Right.
what? I mean, it's only like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, why? Like, I'm de-stressing. Like, why
Right.
can't I say this?
Right.
And like a lot of us that go to work, like sometimes we need to de-stress at the end of the day.
Right.
And not all the time is it work related. Sometimes there's other issues that people are dealing with on a regular basis.
Right.
Where they need to talk to somebody.
Right.
But when you use one person all the time to complain to, then they're going to start viewing you as a complainer.
Right.
So as the friend who's complaining, me being that one in that situation, I learned. And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, because I love my boyfriend, I'm going to dial back my complaining a little bit and find other ways to decompress at the end of my day.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I too, for example, you know, there was a time in my life where I was really struggling with my mental health, and it's, you know, not a linear thing. Like, there's some days or weeks where it's tough, and then some weeks where I'm feeling on top of the moon and feeling great. But there was a time in my life where, like, I knew that I was in a very negative mind space. That, like, I was kind of seeing through a lens of, like, negativity. There was a time in my life when I was really depressed where I felt that way. And I did feel guilty and, like, a burden, because when I was around people, like, I knew I wasn't, like, adding to the room. Like, I was not in a great mood. And so I had a tendency in the past to, like, kind of, like, self-isolate because I didn't want to bring other people down, which is also really dangerous, you know, for somebody struggling with their health. Like, you think, like, isolation is gonna help, but a lot of times it makes things worse. So, like, my suggestion is, for this situation, this delicate situation, is, like, communication and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, if you are the person who is, you know, and if you're able to self-reflect and be like, oh, well, I have been saying a lot of negative things lately, like, maybe take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, like, should I see a therapist? Because, you know, like, therapy, like, that is literally, like, what a therapist is for. To
Yeah.
listen to you, and then to also help you reframe. Like,
Yeah.
reframe to a more positive lens, right?
Right.
So if you're that person, like I was at one point, like, maybe do I need to see a therapist, or one that really, really helps me, because I realized a while ago that not everybody does have the emotional capacity to listen to what is stressing me out. So what is, like, a great alternative? Journaling. Like, journaling is an amazing free alternative where it's, like, obviously it's more fun in some sense to talk to a real human, but at the same time, like, when you really get into journaling and you can say absolutely anything you want,
Yes.
and just get it all out there, sometimes that is, like, such a relieving feeling. It's just you and a piece of paper, or you and, like, the notes app on your phone or something.
And you don't have to feel bad about hurting anyone's feelings.
Yeah, you
either.
don't have to feel bad about hurting anyone's feelings. You just let it all out, you know? And that can also be a really good way to relieve that stress if you're the person. If you're the person on the other end, somebody who is dealing with somebody who is struggling in that negative mind space, my suggestion would be to, in a very gentle way, express to them, like, hey, I love you so much, but I personally am also, like, emotionally taxed right now, and I can only take on so many additional emotions, and I want to be there for you. I want to be there for you as your friend and be a shoulder to lean on, but would you be okay and would you be comfortable if you know that there's something like negative you want to talk about, can we set like a time limit on how long we talk about that? Like maybe like you can vent to me and say whatever you want for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then because you also love me as much as I love you as a friend, like as a compromise, then like for the rest of the day we'd focus on trying to like cheer each other up. We focus on trying to like look through a positive lens to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
You know, setting a boundary as the friend.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, depending on how this person reacts, like, that's out of your control. But you are being true to yourself and saying, like, I love you, I want to be there for you. I would even go as far to say, like, maybe suggest to them, like, you know, but I feel like some people might take that the wrong way if you, like, suggest therapy. But I mean, like, so maybe you just send them this video. Maybe just send them this video, what I'm saying. Because if you're like, oh, maybe you just see a therapist, like that might make someone really mad. But it's not like a negative thing. Like
It's
therapy
not.
is a beautiful thing. And it like helped me so much. And I know it would help so many other people. So it's just finding that balance of being able to communicate and set your boundaries of what you are comfortable with and what the other person is comfortable with, and finding like a happy medium.
Yeah.
Because if you're the person who's venting, obviously, if you're realizing like, hey, this is negatively affecting the people I love, how can I change how I'm handling the stress in my life? And then you turn to a therapist or you turn to journaling. That can really be life-changing and actually really improve not only your life, but the lives of people around you too.
Right.
And then if you're on the other end where you are the person
Listening,
like you are still being a good friend by listening, but now you're just saying, hey, as a boundary for myself, can we put like a time limit on this, because I also can't help you if I end up down as well. Like, you know, that concept of
birds of a feather flock together.
yeah, well, the concept of like, you know, like I said a minute ago, like you have to put your life vest on first before you put someone else's on. Like it's the first thing they tell you when you're on an airplane.
Oh.
The plane crashes.
Wrong analogy.
But it's okay. It's okay, but you know, the plane flight attendants always tell you, like, put your life vest on first before you start helping people, because you can't help people if you don't make it.
Right.
So I think it's just everything in life is a dance and balance, and you can't get anywhere in life if you don't communicate.
Right.
And you need to be there. You want to be there for people, but also you need to be there for yourself. So make sure you're acknowledging like both sides of the coin,
right,
and finding that balance.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion on that. And if the person is a true friend, I think that they'll understand and they'll be like, okay, like I get this. Like I don't want to make you sad.
Right.
And vice versa. If the other person's a true friend, you know, I also want to add to this that there's extremes. Like if you have a friend who is never willing to listen, who's not even willing to listen for 10 minutes, or is like, anytime you bring anything up, you're like, no. Don't talk about anything negative. Like, that's also a little bit toxic, because friendship should have some
give and take.
But then on the other way around, if the other person is always talking about negativity, that can also be toxic for the other friend. So just be mindful
Of each other.
And how our energy affects each other, and to the best of your ability, try to always elevate the vibration in a room.
Yeah.
And if you can't, and if you're at a point where you can't elevate the vibration in a room, then I think honestly it's a really good option to look into maybe getting some therapy, because therapists can help you in a professional way figure out what is that block in your life that's stopping you from being in that mental space.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have any follow-up questions to your question that we answered today, again, please go to askdestinymalibu.com, and we will be happy to continue answering your questions. And any new questions, go to askdestinymalibu.com.
Yes. And if you don't know the mantra, you're about to hear it. If you do know it, say it with us. This is the Destiny Malibu podcast mantra. And we like to end every episode with it, which is, if you hate me, I love you. If you love me, I love you even more. You are not alone, and we are in this together. Love you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.